The combination of a novel technology being introduced to a technology landscape that is unstable, well, that's just scary. It's not uncommon though. Organizations have to keep innovating and pivoting, unstable legacy or not. This just means that the risk has to be captured appropriately with a strong and well thought out mitigation plan in place. Perhaps even consider a data approach, the clever way of doing things, where the two don't even need to touch. In terms of information, if the idea has been through feasibility assessment and the demand management pipeline, it should contain a short brief which describes what the business is trying to do, what they are trying to achieve, how much they're willing to spend, and where applicable, how much they are hoping to make. If all that information is available from the onset, thumbs up. Otherwise, you're sitting with critical decisions that could be made well into the project, muddying up the scope and generally just increasing the risk of failure of the project. The change management risk rating has to capture the extent to which ways of working have to change as a direct result of the project, and how the success or failure of these changes is likely to affect the success of the project. For example, if the key project output involves adding a new feature on a digital channel in order to improve customer experience with the intention of lowering customer churn by say 12%, then this outcome won't be achieved if the training of the support staff of this channel is ineffective. I'll give you an anecdote. Person X, let's call him Simon, went to Bank Y, let's call it Green Bank, to get bank statements for his business so he can do his taxes. The staff at the teller told him he's going to be charged 30 Rand per statement, meaning Simon will have to fork out over 300 Rand just to get his own transactional information. See, Green Bank has been a bit slow on the digital banking side. Well, a bit slow on everything really. The Green Bank had just introduced the downloading of statements on their online banking platform the year before. The staff member had clearly slept through the training, so Simon paid for the statements, and then as soon as he was done with his taxes, switched to a bank that made more sense. The following year, Simon's app users grew 1,000-fold to 3 million users, and guess who is handling those subscription payments? Definitely not the Green Bank. The more business units or functions affected, the higher the risk, because processing can be disjointed if one department implements the process change correctly and the other doesn't. Simon sent an email to his business banker, who would have been able to advise him appropriately before visiting the branch. She ignored him for 3 days. A combination of tardiness and ignorance and monthly subscription payments handling a great chunk of 3 million users just walked through the door, never to be seen again. Next, we allocate weightings. We've allocated the largest weighting to technical complexity. Weighting what needs to be achieved, to what extent it has to be achieved, and whether there are expertise available to deliver has a much larger bearing on how complex the process of getting to the required outcome will be. There are a few levers here available to reduce complexity if too high, such as project phasing to spread out the scope, for example. We have allocated the second highest weighting to elements around the internal shape of the organization in relation to the project. A similar weighting is given to the construct of uncertainty. Not much can be done about the novelty of technology. However, a few more sessions of ideation and business engagement might be necessary to improve the clearness and quality of information required to execute the project. There's nothing much that can be done about the extent to which business needs to change as a result of project outcomes. However, there are a number of interventions, such as extensive training as part of a well-developed change management plan, that can be put in place to mitigate risk. There's also enough time to prepare for change, as key change management activities usually take place when the project is well advanced. In most cases, what needs to be communicated or trained needs to be developed within the project. Lastly, stakeholders can't do much about difficult characters, but a good stakeholder map and a RACI map should help take the sting out of managing them. Here's a guide of the type of questions to ask when doing an assessment of elements and attributes in order to allocate ratings for purposes of doing the project complexity calculation. Multiple stages at which information is possibly available either indicate that information will be available towards the end of one stage and at the beginning of the other, and there would be enough information to start the assessment and then more information in the next stage to refine the calculation. Starting the calculation with barely enough information at an earlier stage helps identify exactly what information is still outstanding to make a more accurate assessment. This ensures stakeholder time is maximized to ideate, collect, and get decisions about mission-critical information. Functions could also mean business units or departments, depending on the structure of the organization. We're now ready to go through the process of calculation. A recap of the selected elements, attributes, and associated weightings. Next, we detail the ratings. The idea is to put these into a spreadsheet with a drop-down menu to easily select a rating when doing the calculation. Enter the risk level and associated rating. We've clearly assigned 1, 2, 3 ratings to the low, moderate, and high risk levels respectively. After assigning ratings, we'll then get an average score per construct, which is then averaged out to get the complexity rating. We've given an example of a calculation here, along with complexity bounds set as described by the legend. It appears simple enough, but the outcomes can be quite surprising. What appears to be a small finance project can be more complex than a large tech migration project. As with everything, it all depends on the context. We're now at the end of section 4. You should be able to develop and execute on your own project complexity model at this point. Join us in section 5 when we briefly go through some complexity management strategies, some of which we've already mentioned here. See you there.